it's for self-reflection. You might need it. Oh my God. I'm not the type of guy who wakes up on his birthday expecting a big celebration or anything special. But I figured I'd at least get something better than becoming the punchline to a joke I didn't see coming. That Tuesday morning in March started like any other. The sun was streaming through the kitchen windows of our Austin suburb home, and I shuffled downstairs in my old gym shorts, thinking maybe today would be different. Maybe today I'd actually feel like the man of the house instead of just the guy who makes the BMW payments and fixes things when they break. My wife Sophia was already in the kitchen with her favorite coffee mug, the one that says Boss Babe in gold script. Like it's the most empowering thing in the world. Her daughter Isabella was perched on the counter, looking smug, and my stepson Cameron was hovering near the doorway with his phone out. He had this look on his face like he was trying really hard not to laugh about something. I figured they were watching some TikTok or something. "Happy birthday, Austin!" Sophia practically sang it, holding out this gift bag with a huge grin on her face. The kind of grin that should have been a warning sign. "Open it! Open it!" Isabella was bouncing excitedly, her phone also out now, because apparently this moment needed to be documented for posterity. I took the bag because what else was I supposed to do? I opened it, pushing aside the tissue paper, and inside was a black t-shirt. For a split second, I thought maybe it would say something normal. World's best stepdad would have been fine. Even Austin's 35th would have gotten a genuine smile from me. But what it actually said in big, bold white letters was, "World's most useless husband." Below that, in smaller text, "Ask my wife for the list." And there was a list. A laminated, color-coded, 50-item list titled, "Things Austin Still Hasn't Done Right," with subcategories like home improvement failures, romantic gesture deficiencies, and my personal favorite, basic adulting skills lacking. I just stood there holding this shirt like it was evidence in a crime scene, waiting for someone to say, "Just kidding, here's your real gift." But that moment never came. Instead, they started laughing. Not little giggles, but full-on, doubled-over, can't-breath laughter. Sophia was wiping tears from her eyes. Isabella was already posting it to her TikTok with the caption, "When your stepdad is actually useless. Lanjamwunj, useless. Husband, yaktar birthday troll." Cameron looked slightly uncomfortable, but was still filming every second of my humiliation. "Oh my God, your face," Sophia managed to gasp between laughs. "I told you he'd be shocked. It's hilarious, right?" "This is definitely going viral," Isabella added, like she was waiting for me to confirm that, yes, this was peak comedy content. Within hours, her TikTok had 2,000 views. By the next day, it was at 15,000. Comments poured in. "Your stepdad looks so dead inside. He's done. The way he just stands there. This is why I'm never getting married." My face tried to decide between crying and rage-quitting life, but instead, it settled on something worse, a smile, a big fake smile that made my jaw hurt, because that's what I always did in this house. I smiled, went along with it, played the good sport. "Thanks," I said, even throwing in a little laugh. "I've always wanted my failures documented in textile form. Really, this is perfect." That made them laugh even harder, because of course it did. Sophia came over and patted my shoulder like I was a dog who just learned a trick. "See? I knew you'd get it. You always have such a good sense of humor about things." "Yeah, a good sense of humor. That's what we're calling slowly dying inside while maintaining a socially acceptable facade." I set the shirt down carefully and noticed breakfast was already laid out. Pancakes, bacon, eggs. Except none of it was for me. They'd already eaten. The dishes were piled in the sink, crusty with syrup and egg residue. "Oh, we already ate," Sophia said. "We thought you'd sleep in longer since it's your day off. But hey, feel free to make yourself something. Feel free, like it was a privilege." "No problem," I said, still smiling. "I'll just clean these up first." And I did. I stood at that sink scrubbing dried pancake batter while they moved to the living room, their laughter fading into background noise. I thought about all the birthdays before this one. The cologne I'd gotten that smelled like a teenage boy's locker room. The ties I'd never worn because I sell cars, not insurance. But this was different. This wasn't just forgetting or being thoughtless. This was intentional. They'd specifically chosen a shirt that said, "World's most useless husband," and thought, Yeah, this is perfect for Austin. This is exactly how we see him. The TikTok kept gaining traction throughout the day. Isabella would update me periodically with glee. 20,000 views, then 35,000. By evening, it had hit 50,000 views. Strangers on the internet were dissecting my marriage, my life, my worth as a human being. The comments section became a roast. Bro needs to pack his bags. She's telling him exactly what she thinks. This man's soul left his body. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, after I'd smiled through dinner and said goodnight like everything was normal, I sat in my home office staring at that TikTok. 50,000 people had watched me get humiliated. 50,000 strangers now knew that my wife considered me useless. The comments kept coming, and most of them weren't sympathetic. I packed a bag that night, just the essentials, clothes, my sales awards from the dealership, and that last shred of dignity I'd been hoarding. I didn't leave a note or write some long explanation. What would have been the point? I just walked out the front door, got in my Camaro, and drove. I dried my hands and made a quiet decision. Not a dramatic one, just a simple one. I was done. 3 weeks went by before I finally turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls from Sophia, 47 text messages that ranged from anger to confusion to what looked like panic, and then the Facebook post. She'd written this heartfelt plea. Please, if anyone knows where Austin is, tell him we just want him home. We love him and miss him so much. Attached was a photo of me from last year, looking happy at a barbecue, holding a beer and laughing at something Cameron had said. The comments were full of support for her. People praying I'd come back, saying I'd return when I was ready, asking if she needed anything. Not one person mentioned Isabella's TikTok that had now reached 75,000 views. Not one person had connected the dots between a man disappearing and his public humiliation going viral. The narrative was simple: concerned wife, missing husband, family in crisis. I ended up at this extended stay hotel called Austin Suites. $59 a night if you paid weekly. And for that budget price, you got a kitchenette that barely worked, a bed that had seen better decades, and the constant sound of I-35 traffic that never quite let you forget you were in transit. The place smelled like industrial cleaning products and broken dreams. The first month was rough. I'd wake up, stare at the popcorn ceiling, count the water stains, and try to figure out what the hell I was doing with my life. I was 35 years old, sleeping in a hotel, because my wife had given me a shirt calling me useless. When you say it like that, it sounds pathetic. But when you really think about what led to that moment, the years of being the punchline, the ATM, the guy who was grateful just to be included, suddenly it doesn't sound pathetic at all. It sounds like the first smart decision I'd made in years. I went back to work at the BMW dealership, because rent doesn't care about your emotional breakdown, even when that rent is only $400 a week. My manager, Chris Thompson, noticed I seemed different. You good, man? You've been closing deals like your life depends on it. And maybe it did. When you strip away everything else, the house, the family, the illusion of being needed, what's left is what you can actually do. And I could sell cars. I could read people, figure out what they needed, make them feel good about spending money. It's a skill, and suddenly it felt like the only skill that mattered. The commission checks started adding up. Not enough to move back into a real apartment, but enough to upgrade to a monthly rate at the hotel and start thinking about the future. For the first time in years, every dollar I earned was mine. No joint account, no discussions about how to spend it, no guilt about buying lunch because we're trying to save money, while Sophia dropped $200 on another yoga outfit. That's where I met Walter Patterson. Walt was a retired Navy guy, about 60, who came in looking for a used 3 Series, but he spent more time talking than shopping. You know cars, he said the first time I helped him, sizing me up like he was deciding whether I was worth his time. 15 years in sales. You looking for something specific or just browsing? Depends. You one of those salesmen who will tell me whatever I want to hear, or you actually know what you're talking about? I showed him 3 cars, explained the differences in engines, maintenance costs, depreciation rates. Real talk, no BS. He listened, asked good questions, and when I finished, he said, "You actually know what you're doing. That's rare." Walt didn't buy a car that day, or the next day he came in, or the day after that. But he kept coming back, and we kept talking. Cars led to life life led to my situation. And eventually I found myself telling this virtual stranger about the shirt, the list, the whole humiliating mess. "Let me get this straight," Walt said. We were standing by a red M3, pretending he might buy it. "Your wife makes more money than you, right? She's a real estate agent, good one. Probably pulls 120 a year to my 75. And she gave you a shirt calling you useless, on your birthday, while filming it for social media. Her daughter filmed it, got 50,000 views calling me pathetic." Walt was quiet for a long moment, running his hand along the M3's hood like he was thinking about something deeper than clear coat. Then he said something that hit me like a brick to the face. "Son, a woman who builds you up in public and tears you down in private is having an affair. A woman who tears you down in public. She's just done with you and too chicken shit to say it." The truth of that statement sat in my chest like a weight. Not because I thought Sophia was cheating, but because I realized she was done with me and had been for a while. The shirt wasn't a joke. It was a message, a public declaration that she didn't respect me, didn't value me, and wanted everyone to know it. "You know what the difference is between a useless husband and a man who's done being useful to the wrong people?" Walt asked. "What?" "About 18 months and some self-respect." That conversation changed something in me. I started seeing my situation differently. Not as a victim of cruel humor, but as a guy who'd finally been given permission to stop pretending everything was fine. I started working out at a 24-hour gym near the hotel. Not because I was trying to get revenge hot or anything dramatic like that. I just needed to do something that was mine, something that didn't involve anyone else's opinion or approval. I met Diego Martinez there, a guy about my age who owned a small construction company. We spotted each other, talked about work, life, the general struggle of being a man in your 30s who's supposed to have everything figured out but feels like he's improvising every day. My ex-wife used to tell me I wasn't ambitious enough, Diego told me one night while we were doing bench press. Said I'd never amount to anything if I didn't think bigger. You know what happened when I started my own company and started making real money? What? She said I was working too much and neglecting the family. You can't win, man. Some people just need someone to blame for their own unhappiness. The gym became my sanctuary. Diego became something I hadn't had in years. A friend who didn't know my history, didn't have opinions about my marriage, just saw me as Austin who could spot him on deadlifts and had good advice about dealing with difficult customers. We started meeting 3 times a week, and those conversations kept me sane. Around month 4 of my hotel life, I did something that seemed crazy at the time. Chris at the dealership kept saying I should start a podcast. Dude, you know everything about cars, and you're funny as hell. People would listen to that. Plus, you've got stories for days. The idea seemed ridiculous at first. Who was I to think people would want to hear me talk? But then I thought about all the customers I'd helped over the years, all the conversations about more than just cars. I thought about Walt's wisdom, Diego's friendship, my own journey from doormat to whatever I was becoming. I called it Real Talk with Austin, conversations about cars, life, and the stuff they don't teach you in school about being a man. My first episode was recorded on my phone in my hotel room at 2 a.m. because that was the only time the highway noise died down. It was about the difference between a car salesman and a car consultant, and why most people hate buying cars. Here's the thing, I said into my phone's microphone, trying to ignore the sound of someone arguing in the next room. Car salesmen try to sell you what they need to move. Car consultants figure out what you actually need and find the right fit. The difference is whether they're solving your problem or theirs. And here's the crazy part. This applies to everything in life. Relationships, jobs, friendships. Are people trying to solve their problems or yours? I talked about reading people, understanding what they really want versus what they think they want, and how those skills apply to life in general. I posted it on a Tuesday night because I was too nervous to post during normal business hours, then turned off my phone and tried to sleep. Next morning, 27 downloads, 8 comments, and a message from a local Austin car group asking if I wanted to be featured in their newsletter. Not exactly viral, but it was something. People were actually listening. I started posting twice a week. Car reviews mixed with life advice, interviews with interesting customers like Walt, stories from the dealership that somehow connected to bigger truths about human nature. The audience grew slowly but steadily, 50 subscribers became 200, became 500. The EC breakthrough came when I did an episode about toxic relationships without naming names. I talked about recognizing when you're the punchline instead of the partner, about the difference between being roasted by friends who love you and being humiliated by people who claim to love you. There's a difference, I said, between someone laughing with you and someone laughing at you. When the people closest to you choose to laugh at you, when they make your pain into entertainment, that's not love. That's cruelty dressed up as humor. That episode got 2,000 downloads in the first week. Comments poured in from men sharing their own stories, thanking me for putting words to feelings they couldn't express. I realized I wasn't just talking about cars anymore. I was talking about dignity, respect, and the courage to walk away from people who don't value you. 6 months after I left, Cameron reached out. Not through Sophia, not through some dramatic family intervention. He just showed up at the dealership one afternoon after school. I was showing a customer a 2019 X3 when I saw him standing by the service counter, looking nervous and taller than I remembered, like he'd grown up in the months I'd been gone. Austin? He looked around like he wasn't sure he should be there. Hey buddy, everything okay? I listened to your podcast, the one where you talked about the situation with Mom. I'd been careful not to mention names or specific details, but he'd connected the dots. Smart kid. Always was. Yeah? What'd you think? I think what happened to you was messed up, and I think I should have said something when it happened, but I was scared. We went to get coffee and talked for 2 hours. Really talked like adults. He told me about the tension at home, how Sophia had been stressed about money since I left, how she kept asking if he had heard from me, how Isabella's TikTok fame had died down, but the comments still came in occasionally, most of them not very nice. She keeps saying you abandoned us, Cameron said, stirring his coffee and not meeting my eyes. But you didn't abandon me, you left her. There's a difference. Smart kid. Smarter than I was at his age, or maybe at my age. You want to stay in touch? I asked. No pressure. I know it's complicated with your mom. Yeah, I'd like that. Actually, I was wondering, could I come work on cars with you sometime? Like, learn some stuff? We started meeting every other Saturday. Sometimes we'd work on his beat-up Honda that needed constant attention. Sometimes we'd just talk about life, school, his plans for college. Those meetings became the best part of my week, proof that leaving didn't mean losing everything that mattered. The podcast kept growing. 1,000 subscribers, then 2,500. Local businesses started asking about sponsorships. Small money at first, $50 to mention a local tire shop, $100 to review someone's aftermarket parts. But it was income from something I owned, something I'd built. Around month 8, Cameron mentioned something during one of our Saturday car sessions that made my stomach drop. We were under the hood of his Honda, replacing the alternator, when he said casually, "Mom's been asking a lot of questions about your podcast lately. How many people listen, if you make money from it, where you're living now?" I straightened up, wiping grease off my hands. How much is a lot of questions? Like, every few days. She'll bring it up randomly. I wonder how Austin's little podcast is doing. Or do you think people actually pay him for that? She's been weird about it. I could see it coming like a slow-motion car crash. The narrative was forming. Austin the deadbeat who abandoned his family and is now profiting from telling his sob story, while his poor wife struggles to keep everything together. Never mind that she made 45 grand more than I ever did. Never mind that she'd chosen to humiliate me publicly. Facts don't matter when someone's building a case. Cameron, I need you to be honest with me. Do you think she's planning something? He didn't answer right away, which was answer enough. She's been talking to Aunt Patricia a lot, and she mentioned something about protecting her interests when she thought I wasn't listening. Patricia was Sophia's older sister, a family law attorney who'd never liked me and had probably been waiting years for this opportunity. So I did what any reasonable paranoid person would do. I called a lawyer of my own. Rebecca Walsh ran a small firm downtown and specialized in men's rights and divorce cases. Her office was above a coffee shop and smelled like espresso and legal documents. "Let me understand this correctly," she said, looking over the notes I'd brought. "You've been separated for 8 months. You haven't filed for divorce. You started a podcast that's generating income. And now, your wife is asking questions about your finances. That's the situation. Austin, you need to file first. Control the narrative. Document everything. Income, assets, the circumstances of your leaving. Keep detailed records of your podcast earnings, your living expenses, everything. And most importantly, document your relationship with your stepson. That shows you didn't abandon the family. You left a toxic marriage, but maintained the relationships that mattered. I walked out of her office feeling prepared instead of paranoid. I had a lawyer, a plan, documentation. But more than that, I had proof that I was thriving, not just surviving. The podcast hit 5,000 subscribers around month 10. The sponsorship deals got bigger. Local gyms, automotive shops, even a supplement company that wanted me to talk about men's health. I wasn't getting rich, but I was making an extra $800 to $1,000 a month. Combined with my sales commissions, I could finally afford to move out of the hotel. I found a one-bedroom apartment above a pizza shop in downtown Austin. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Real furniture instead of hotel pieces, a kitchen that worked, windows that faced actual streets instead of parking lots. Walt helped me move, which was easy because I still didn't have much. But I had a real bed frame now, a desk for recording podcasts, a bookshelf that was slowly filling up with books about business, relationships, self-improvement. "Look at you," Walt said, standing in my new living room. "From hotel to apartment, from disaster to minor internet celebrity. What's next? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I've got 5,000 subscribers to a podcast about cars and life advice." "I'm serious, Austin. You've done something here. You took a garbage situation and turned it into something. Most people just stay in the garbage and complain. You climbed out." Standing there in my new apartment, small and smelling like pepperoni but mine, I couldn't argue. He was right. I had done something. The podcast episodes got more personal as my confidence grew. I interviewed successful men about their journeys, their failures, their advice, local business owners, guys who'd rebuilt after divorce, veterans like Walt, who'd found civilian success. It became less about cars and more about life, but the automotive stuff was always there as a framework that kept it grounded and masculine. Then, around month 11, I did an episode that changed everything. It was called When Your Family Makes You the Joke, and while I still didn't name names, I told the whole story. The shirt, the list, the TikTok that had eventually reached 125,000 views before Isabella finally took it down, after the comments got too brutal. I talked about public humiliation, about the difference between humor that includes you and humor that destroys you. "Here's what I learned," I said into the microphone in my pizza-scented apartment at midnight. "When people who claim to love you choose to make you the punchline, they're not joking. They're telling you exactly how they see you. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can keep being their joke, or you can become your own success story." That episode got 15,000 downloads in the first week. Comments flooded in from men sharing their own stories of being humiliated by spouses, in-laws, people who were supposed to have their backs. The episode was shared in men's groups on Facebook, discussed on other podcasts, picked up by a men's lifestyle blog that featured it as required listening for every man who's ever felt invisible in his own life. My subscriber count hit 12,000. Sponsorship offers started coming from companies I'd actually heard of. Not enough to quit the dealership, but enough to start thinking about the future differently. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. That's when Sophia made her move. Cameron told me during one of our Saturday meetings that she'd hired Patricia as her attorney and was planning to file for divorce. "She's claiming you abandoned the family and are hiding assets," he said, looking uncomfortable. "She wants half of everything you've built since you left." I smiled. For the first time in this whole mess, I actually smiled when someone told me bad news. "Let her try," I told Rebecca the next day. "I've got documentation of everything. Income, expenses, the circumstances of my leaving, plus I've got witnesses to her behavior." "Good. But there's something else we need to discuss. Your stepson's graduation is coming up, right?" I'd been thinking about that. Isabella's graduation was scheduled for early June, about 14 months after I'd left. Cameron had mentioned it casually, not as an invitation, but just as a fact. The party would be at the house, my old house, and according to Cameron, it was going to be a big deal. Extended family, neighbors, the whole social circle that had seen Sophia's concerned Facebook posts about her missing husband. "I'm thinking about going," I told Rebecca. She looked at me like I'd suggested juggling chainsaws. "Austin, that's not advisable. It could be seen as confrontational, especially with litigation pending. Or it could be seen as a caring stepfather who wants to congratulate a kid he helped raise. I'm still legally half owner of that property, and if they're having an open house celebration, I have every right to attend." Rebecca sighed. "If you're determined to do this, we need to be strategic, document everything, be civil, don't give them ammunition." The graduation party arrived on a perfect June afternoon. I'd spent weeks preparing mentally, physically, emotionally. I looked good. The gym sessions with Diego had paid off. My podcast success had given me confidence, and I'd bought a new shirt for the occasion. Not the useless husband shirt, obviously. That was still hanging in my closet as a reminder. I could hear the music and laughter from 3 blocks away. When I pulled up to the house, my house, I sat in my car for a moment, looking at the scene. The yard I'd maintained, the driveway I'd sealed, the mailbox I'd installed. It looked exactly the same, but I was completely different. The conversation stopped when I walked through the gate, not immediately, but like someone slowly turning down the volume. I could see the recognition dawning on faces, people who'd seen me around the neighborhood for years, people who'd commented on Sophia's Facebook posts with concern and prayers for my safe return. But there were also people looking at me with a different kind of recognition. Younger guys, some of Cameron's friends, a few neighbors who'd clearly found my podcast. I could see them whispering, pointing discreetly. "That's the guy from Real Talk with Austin." "Dude, that's actually him." The useless husband guy. Sophia was near the drinks table, wine glass frozen halfway to her lips when she saw me. Her face went through the expected emotions. Surprise, confusion, anger, but landed on something I hadn't expected. Fear. She looked afraid. Isabella was by the graduation cake, wearing a blue dress and a cap that said "Done" in glitter. She went pale when she spotted me, probably remembering her TikTok that had eventually been taken down after the comments got too brutal. Comments like, "This aged poorly," "Your stepdad won big," "Bet you feel stupid now," "He's doing better without you toxic people." But Cameron was sitting with friends, and when he saw me, his whole face lit up. He stood and started walking toward me, and that was all the confirmation I needed that I'd made the right choice coming here. "Austin?" Sophia's voice cut through the gathering silence. "What are you doing here?" I smiled, calm and easy. "Just dropping by to say congratulations. It is an open house, right?" I saw the Facebook invitation. I could see her brain working, trying to figure out how to handle this without making a scene in front of all these people who'd been following our drama for over a year. You can't just show up here after abandoning your family. Actually, I can. I never abandoned anyone. I left a marriage that had become toxic. There's a difference, and I've maintained a relationship with Cameron this whole time. I looked around at the faces staring at us. But I'm not here to cause drama. I'm here to congratulate Isabella and to give her a graduation gift. Cameron reached me and wrapped me in a hug, right there in front of everyone. Several people had their phones out now, probably expecting drama, but getting something different instead. I turned to Isabella, who was standing by the cake looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. I pulled a small wrapped box from my pocket. "Congratulations on graduating. I know we haven't talked since I left, but I did help raise you for 3 years. That meant something to me, even if it didn't to you." She took the box slowly. "What is it?" "Open it and see." Inside was a small compact mirror with an engraving that read, "For self-reflection. You might need it." The crowd made this collective intake of breath. Isabella stared at the mirror, and I could see the exact moment she remembered her TikTok, her laughter, her participation in my humiliation. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "It's simple," I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent yard. "Sometimes we need to take a hard look at who we really are versus who we think we are. Sometimes we need to reflect on our choices and their consequences." I looked at Sophia, this woman who'd made more money than me, who'd had all the power in our relationship, who'd decided that publicly humiliating me was entertainment. "Sophia, you wanted to know why I changed. The answer is simple. You did too. You changed when you decided I was useless. You changed when you made my pain into entertainment. You changed when you gave away what was mine, my dignity, my peace, my sense of worth, and called it a birthday gift. I started walking toward the gate, then stopped and turned back one final time. But here's what you didn't count on. You gave me the greatest gift you could have given me, the truth about how you really saw me. And once I knew that, I was free to become who I actually am instead of who you needed me to be. I got in my Camaro and drove away, windows down, music up, smiling for the first time in years.